Right, massive welcome to Simon Parkes with Jinn and Shadow Beings. Called Jinn in Islam, other names in different cultures and religions just possibly might describe the same entities. Maybe angels, demons, thought forms, archons, boggarts, spirits, aliens, many more. Tonight, as darkness falls, night draws in. Simon speaks of the mysterious and ancient Jinn and Shadow Beings and gives us an update on his latest research on the UFO phenomenon. Please welcome Simon Parkes.
Thank you very much. Well, probably about 50 of you, and I did say to the organisers that as it was the first one after the summer holidays, there'd be fewer of you. Something like 310,000 hits on YouTube watching New Horizons video of my last talk, and I believe that's the highest number of any alternative organisation in the country. So that's really brilliant. However, yeah, okay, that's that bit over with. I'm going to talk about shadow beings and jinn simply because A, they're not really discussed. There's not a lot of information here in the Western world. We don't really have a handle on this. I did this presentation in a Masonic temple. I was asked to do it in a Masonic temple. Therefore, we're going to talk about jinn, magic, shadows. It was reasonably well taken, and therefore at Miles Johnson's Basis project, which was in Marlborough, and I was speaker there, I ran this, and that went down quite well. So I promised to do it here because I thought that Miles wouldn't get this up in time. It is up in time. Did anybody see the presentation I did at Marlborough? That's actually quite good because it means you won't have to sit through it again. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to just give you a little bit of an update. We'll just talk about some general things, and then we'll do the jinn and the shadows. The blurb that appeared on your New Horizons website was taken from a pretty standard text, and those in the West who don't read the Quran, who don't have access to knowledge from the East, really have very little handle on jinn. And the issues there, of course, are that we don't appreciate them, appreciate what they are, where they've come from, and quite what's going on. Whereas those people who are Islamic, who have studied the Quran, it is not a mythology. And in fact, in the blurb, and this is no criticism, in the blurb of the website, it actually says mythology. That would be like saying to an English person, 1066 is a mythology. It's not a mythology, it's history. 1066 was history. But to say to an Islamic person that jinn is mythology would be an incredibly rude thing to do, because to them they are taught that jinn are real. And in fact they have spells to get rid of them. So we need to understand from a Western perspective that we as a part of the world have completely lost contact with that side of it. Okie doke. I'm not staying at the organiser's house tonight. I'm actually driving back to Whitby, so we are going to finish quite promptly because I won't get home till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So if I could be given a 10-minute warning, and then we'll go into questions so that we finish okay. Great. Okay, let's see how the technology goes. That's the image that New Horizons used to portray the talk. All the images I'm using tonight are either computer generated or drawn from eyewitness accounts. Okay, in Whitby there are a number of villages, and just as you have scarecrows, Rob, what was the name of the village we went through with the scarecrows?
Staining.
Say it again.
Staining. Staining.
Okay, so you have scarecrows at Staining, and they have a village near Whitby that does scarecrows, and this won first prize 2 years ago, and I always ask people to come down the rabbit hole with me, And so there's Alice and the White Rabbit. I've never made hidden the secret that I did have some programming. I had what was called the White Rabbit programming, which is a subset of the Alice in Wonderland programming. And a White Rabbit programming allows a fourth dimensional entity to attach to you so that it can move between the third and fourth reality. You think that in the Alice in Wonderland story, the rabbit was the only consistent creature between Wonderland and Alice's world. It went up and down into the rabbit hole. So that's why it's called White Rabbit programming, and it's been used by the military, the Illuminati, since about the 50s. We'll start with a nice picture. I want to get you in the mood. There's Her Majesty. It's an old picture, it's well known, but it's just worth reminding ourselves that as the gold bullion decreases in the Western world, except in Switzerland and China, the Queen now holds probably the largest amount of gold outside of those two countries, and you don't get pictures like this anymore. That is her private, personal gold. It's nice, isn't it? Okay, we live in a world where we are being continually constrained, and walking near a play park in Whitby, I saw a sign, not this one, but it said no ball games, no skateboarding, no frisbee. And I turned to the person with me and said, no fun, no joy. We live in a world where we are being constrained in such a way as we're not necessarily realizing it. I saw a taxi, and not just on a sticker, but painted on the car, it said, no smoking, no eating, no drinking. And I thought to myself, doesn't say anything about vomiting. Okay. And I spoke to a taxi driver, and he said, oh, yes, there is. No smoking, no eating, and it's a £60 soiling fee will be charged. So, no, you can't vomit either. Okay, I want to talk about controlling. The Americans are now on the verge of rolling out IntelliStreets. That's short for intelligent streets. In New York, to replace the entire street lighting columns, something like 230 to 250,000 street lights are going to be replaced. Not with these. These are very sort of Victorian-looking things. They'll be very modern. But IntelliStreets are street lamps that have a microphone, can listen to your conversations as you walk past them, a camera to film you, a loudspeaker to talk to you. It will also give you digital instructions. The way they're selling them to government is by saying, look, you know what, when the sun rises up one side of the street, these lights will turn off automatically that half of the road that's lit. So it's an electrical saving. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that you are going to be spied on every time you walk down a road. So it's called IntelliStreets. Being rolled out in America, will be, come everywhere. So just be aware of that. Here's a nice way to tell people not to drop their fag butts. That's somebody that hasn't been imprinted with the matrix. Somebody who can say, look, we've got rules, but let's not sort of be Colonel Blimp. Let's not threaten and shout and argue, and let's just do it in a clever way. You put the radio on, you put the television on, and it's fear, worry, concern. It doesn't matter whether it's the Archers on Radio 4, whether it's EastEnders, whether it's a serious news item. There are key words being dropped in now which are there to engender fear and disquiet. And if I didn't do what I do, I would just turn the news off completely and just would refuse to listen to it, because it's 90% lies. But I have to listen to it because I need to know what they're saying. This was chalked up. I didn't do it, I'm not artistic enough. This was chalked up in Whitby. Try to love all the people. Time to stop the hurt. Be here now. What's happening is that the children are changing. This is a young woman, I guess. The kids of today are very different from the kids of yesterday. In the height of my driving, teaching young people to drive, I was never bothered by a young person who said to me, "Why do I have to do that? Why do you want me to do that?" But to a person of my generation, that's incredibly challenging, and to the system, that's really, really quite worrying. And that's why young people actually are rebelling, not as the days of the flower power, but in a much more spiritual way. And these signs are appearing all over England, not just in Glastonbury where you would expect it, but in some of the most God-forsaken places like underground subways. And this is the hope for the future. It really is. Okay, this is a well-known photograph. It's the International Space Station. It's a posed picture. Every photograph coming from something that NASA is involved in will be posed. But the key why I'm showing you that is that the guy is on a computer screen and he has a screensaver. So this is a publicly released picture. That's on the screensaver. This is what we call soft disclosure. It's where we pick up images or words said by the establishment to get us ready for some form of alien contact, either genuine or fabricated. Now the picture is flashing off and on. The brighter picture is taken from a NASA document called Disclosure. So NASA had a document, electronic document called Disclosure, and they've just literally used a screenshot onto the front. So this is trying to send a message in a quiet way. You can Google this if you have the time to try and find it. Okay, I went public, as you may know, 3 years ago, and of course, the usual, the establishment turned on me and tried to make me out to be a Walter Mitty character or a crazy nut or whatever it is was the flavour of the month. And then, of course, I got invited to the top secret radar base, and that was a game changer, because when the military invited me for a 3-hour tour of one of the most sensitive facilities, not just in Britain but in the world, all the media who had been attempting to make a fool of me were absolutely, well, the carpet was pulled from under their feet. And I had a number of people from BBC, ITV, who would telephone me and say, we don't know what's going on, because we had a brief, excuse me, we had a brief to, take the discussions down a certain way, and now we find that the establishment are treating you very seriously. Is there anybody who didn't see the commemorative coin that I was presented with? Have you all seen this? You have? Okay, good. I'm going to pass it round again. What I didn't show was the little pun that CND were doing, which was Star Wars. Because CND knew that this wasn't just a space radar station to detect ballistic missiles. There was the potential for wars with other civilizations, and so they used to demonstrate at the height of the time saying, "Don't Star Wars." Very clever. But most people didn't understand what they were saying. Having been given this leg up by the military, suddenly taken very seriously, I then had the interview with Schofield and Holly Willoughby. And that was the time that they didn't want any pictures of a reptilian shown to the public, but they were quite happy with the mantid. Very interesting. So, still can't talk about reptilians. And the new Pope took his inaugural speech, and he said, "I will baptize any aliens." Now, I was actually in Glastonbury, and at 6:30 in the morning I got a phone call from the BBC. I was in the bath, saying, "The Pope's just said he'll baptize aliens, can we have a comment?" That's how it's changed from being tried to make a fool of me. Now, when something like this happens, the establishment come to me for a comment. So that radar base was a big, big game changer. And it really made it very difficult for people who had tried to debunk the whole alien agenda. Okay, I have to choose my words carefully now. I attended the base's conference, and after I'd spoken, an American guy came up and said, could he buy me lunch? And that was quite good. And I was with a few friends. And he said that he represented a group of elite people who were multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires, who had asked him to come and have a chat with me. He was not their messenger, because that sounds rather belittling, and I don't mean it that way. I think he was their, their interface, because as he said, they will never meet you. And he said that I'd come across his radar because these people who he works for had told him that they had watched me, and that I was genuine, and that everything I'd said was for real. So they wanted to make me an offer. But before the offer, there was one question. I can't tell you what the question was. I was asked a question. It was a technology question, an alien technology question, which I partially answered at the table, but at a later date I went into the car park and, out of earshot of everybody else, gave him a follow-up. Having answered his question, he said that an offer was that I would have bodyguards, would be provided for me, armoured cars, and that if I wanted an underground bunker for me and my loved ones, these would be provided. And normally there's a huge charge, but in my case it was for free. I don't know about the bunker. I'm quite tickled at flying around Britain in blacked out armoured cars. That quite tickles me. But this is a very genuine offer, and it's just interesting for me because I'm trying to be on a website called Avalon. Bill Ryan, ex of Project Camelot, has a new project called Avalon. And sometimes people who join that don't take the trouble to speak to me or check out any of my videos, and they sort of say, Simon Parkes his grandfather never worked for MI6, or his mother never worked for MI5. And here's the great dichotomy, because you have people who have never seen anything, perhaps never seen a ghost, never had a granny who read tea leaves, and have believed everything that they've been taught through their life. And then, there I am meeting somebody who is representing some very elite people who say, completely straight-faced, we accept everything you say, we need to go and do this. And this is the battle between those that have the power and the money, who know the truth, and those who make up the vast majority of people who have had the truth hidden from them. And this is where it's grossly unfair. Everybody should have the same information, and everybody should be able to make the choice. If people don't have the information, how can they make a choice? Okay, what are the shadows? Shadow people, shadow beings, shadow this, shadow that. What I want to do tonight is to talk about the shadows a little bit, try to see if we can come to some understanding between the difference between shadows and jinn, try and work out where they come from. I'm not a researcher. I experience, and I've experienced shadow creatures and jinn creatures for a very long time. Just lucky they don't hurt me. The Andersons, who made Stingray and Thunderbirds, made a very interesting TV show in 1968 or 69 called UFO. And the headquarters for this fictitious base was the Supreme Headquarters Alien, Defense Organization, and they use a shadow. I don't believe that that's just chance. Here's a speaker, very well-known lady, and she's talking about the Hat Man. This is a well-known shadow image that people have. I was just a little bit surprised at this, because why are the shadows watching you? And I think in my talks, I really don't want to inject any fear. It's a balancing act between telling you my truth and what I know to be true. And sometimes that's not very good news. But I'm certainly not in the business of trying to scare you or use language that would fear you. So I would never use what this lady has done. Why are the shadows watching you? It's much better to say, okay, let's work out what they're about.